So welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure and an honor to have you all here today. Is the microphone working? Can everybody hear me well?
Closer to my mouth. That's going to become a little bit of a slavery. So my name is Francesco Bolo. I'm a faculty and the chair of the Mechanical Engineering Department. And this is our yearly convocation. It's our 2016 event. I think it's the 13th consecutive event we've had. We have a busy agenda, lots of topics. We'll welcome everybody, review some awards that staff, faculty, and students have received, and then we'll award this year's Grad Student Awards, and we'll award our Distinguished Alumnus Award, and then we will have a little research-oriented event called the Grad Slam. Our talented graduate students will present short research pitches, ideas, and then we'll have a reception, and then we'll come back for a special feature that will hopefully encounter your approval. Now, first of all, let me give you all my welcome back to school for the new year, to all our senior undergraduates who have been invited and happy to be here, our senior graduate students, and then special staff and faculty, and then especially thank you and welcome to the first-year graduate students who just entrusted us with the responsibility and privilege to serve as your teachers and mentors. So welcome you all. I know Professor Ju will go over this with more detail. Let me give you just 2 minutes about the department, just to introduce you to the new ones of you and the ones who may not have heard about it. We have 302 undergraduate students, 64 to 70 PhD students, graduate students and PhD students, 26 faculty members, including some that are on leave of absence right now and that are going to be joining us shortly, and 10 lecturers, engineers, and staff that help us execute on our 3 missions of research, teaching, and public service. I'd like to welcome Professor Irene Byline. She's not here with us today, and Professor Samantha Daly, who happens to be here with us today. Welcome to campus, as well as our newly hired marketing and communication coordinator, Mariah Flagg. I don't see Mariah right now, but I think she was here until a second ago and had to step up. Now, the department has a broad range of research interests with core scientific areas that are very traditional and innovative inside mechanical engineering, bioengineering and systems biology, computational sciences and engineering, control and dynamical systems, as well as mechanics of fluids, mechanics of materials, mechanics of structures, and then also a great program on micro and nanoscience, and technology. And then we focus our research on a number of application areas that have societal impact. We really pride ourselves on our collaborative research, and these are just 2 examples of grants, of new research projects that have been funded lately that are going to be starting soon. Congratulations to our colleague, Professor Kimberly Turner, Megan Valentine, the principal investigator Adele Doyle, as well as to Professor Paolo Zatofagis and Ecker Myberg. They're going to be working respectively on a microfluidics MEMS approach to study force-induced changes in neurons. So that's a prestigious award, one of the few in the country from the new NSF emphasis on neural and cognitive systems. And then the exciting part of the work by Professor Zatofagis and Myberg on sediment dynamics is that this will entail also some advanced experiments on the International Space Station. So congratulations to all of the student and faculty staff that are engaged in research. That's a great mission of the department. I also want to spend a minute to talk about our great undergraduate program. We have a program that is rooted in the fundamentals of the field, and then also is complemented by lots of hands-on, design experiences throughout the curriculum. And while I should thank all of the faculty and instructors, let me just have a shout out for the design team. I'm going to refer to them that way. Professor Tyler Susko, I'll talk about him in a second, as well as the director of the other program, Professor Payton, our fantastic 4 development engineers, Dave Bothman, Kurt Fields, Greg Allen, and Ron Marks. I'm not sure they're here today with us. Our machine shop staff, and the academic coordinator, Steve Laggett, who handles the industrial relationships in setting up for the capstone design program. And some recent highlights for the undergraduate program have to do with some improvements. A new program that we've started, including, well, we've hired Tyler, who's run our capstone design program, and as you know, last year he won the Distinguished Faculty Award from the graduating senior. We started the combined bachelor master's program. I think it's in its second or third year, beginning now, depending on how you count. We started new multidisciplinary design projects for our undergraduates. We got a full reaccreditation from ABES and made a number of improvements to our undergraduate curriculum. So these are very exciting times. Let me now get off the stage and introduce Professor Frédéric Dufour, who will once again welcome the first year students.
So I would like to welcome the graduate students. This is going to be the best time of your life. I remember when I was a grad student, I never heard that over and over again from colleagues. This is the best time of your life. You are going to acquire knowledge, you are going to acquire skills that are going to help you fulfill your career, but also you are going to search to create knowledge, and you are going to discover things, which is very rewarding. So like Francesco said, the department is solidly the top 10 departments. It's a very strong department. It offers a wide range of classes, seminars, expertise, so you can tailor an education that is right for you and fulfill your career goals. Definitely take advantage of the interdisciplinary nature of our campus, maybe try to solve problems that you wouldn't be able to solve if you were just within one discipline. The faculty and the staff are happy that you have chosen UCSB, and we'll be here to help you in any way we can. So welcome everybody, and I would like to introduce you by name. Now. So we have in the PhD program, we have Pascal Ackerman. Is Pascal here? Yeah. Maybe you can stand up and then. Okay. I know you, a lot of your colleagues know you, but not everybody. So we have a Poria, is standing. Poria here? Yeah. Anna, Zoitz. Anna, you will make it, okay. Karthik, Shigmakadu. Alexandra Downs, Zhao Ming Duen, Alex Eden, Elizabeth Wang, Simon Stewart, Jennifer Walker, and Philip Wang. All right. We have also some master students, Ming Yu Lin, Sean Mackenzie, and Jan Zhang Wang. Okay. Finally, we have introduced a BSMS program a couple of years ago, and we have so one student who is entering the master's year, which is Franklin Zheng. And then we also have many BSMS students that enter the senior year of the bachelor's, and we have 11 of them. I'm just going to read the names, not to stand up. So you have John Abraham, Jared Kadek, Michael Cosley, Matthew Devol Gerard, sorry for butchering the name, Madeline Dippel, Brandon Grunberg, Zachary Guilford, Brooks Peterson, Erin Son, Liz Watch, and Chen Wong. So that's for the grade student. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the SME student chapter that for the work that we do, for the contribution to the profession, and also for the undergraduate that could participate to the convocation today. So now I'm going to give the turn to Kimberly Turner, who has some good news for us.
Thank you. I'm Kimberly Turner, and it's my great pleasure to announce all the awards and accolades people earned over the last year. So I'm going to do the faculty awards first, and if I could, just to save time, I'll read through the whole list, and then we can give everyone a round of applause at the end. All right. So first off, our esteemed chair, Francesco Bulla, was the plenary lecturer at the IEEE Conference on Decision and Control, and received the Distinguished Member Award for the IEEE Control Systems Society in 2015. Professor Igor Mezic was elected fellow of the APS. Professor Emeritus Robert Odette got the 2015 TMS Structural Materials Division Best Paper Award, and was also elected fellow of the TMS Society in 2016. Professor Eckert Myberg was invited keynote speaker at the 65th Annual Canadian Chemical Engineering Conference in Calgary. Linda Petzold was won the Siam Prize for Distinguished Service to the Profession in 2016. And Chancellor Henry Yang, who also happens to be a member of our department, won the AAEOY Distinguished Lifetime Achievement Award from the Chinese Institute of Engineers in the USA division. He also won the CSAC Lifetime Achievement Award for Chinese Engineers and Scientists Association of Southern California, and the Tech Connect National Innovation Award for Bio-Inspired Hydraulic Actuator to Stabilize Buildings in Natural Disasters. Let's give everyone a big round of applause. Next up, the grad students. So we have two categories. One is for recent alumni. A couple of our alumni have made outstanding achievements, including John Simpson Porco, who was the 2015 Best PhD Thesis Award for the Center for Controlled Dynamical Systems and Computation, and Florian Dorfler, who for his work at UCSB during his PhD, he was the recipient of the 2016 Guiman-Kauer Best Paper Award for the IEEE Transactions on Circuits and Systems. So let's give them a round of applause. And now on to the current ME grad students. And just so we all know who you are, if I call your name, could you stand up? And then again, we'll save the applause for the end. First, we have Raphael Egan, the recipient of the Fellowship for Graduate Studies awarded by the Belgian American Education Foundation. The BAEF supports the exchange of university students, scientists, and scholars between the U.S. and Belgium. Next, we have Brian Emery, who was the recipient of the NOAA Automated Comparisons for IOOS High-Frequency Radar Quality Control, given for developing quality control metrics for oceanographic HF radars and producing these in an automated way so they're available operationally. And finally, Alexandra Downs, who's recipient of the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program starting this fall, and also the recipient of the 2016 Dr. Scholars Central Graduate Division Fellowship. Let's give the three of them a And our final category is for the Junior Design Project winners from last spring. This is always an exciting time when we have our design review, so I'm happy to revisit these projects. There's three categories. The first category was most innovative, and this went to the self-actuating skateboard brake. And the members of that team were Joyce Martinez, Dane Frederick, Farzan Koharansani, Michael Cosley, John Winterling, and Louis Walsh. The second category was most marketable, and that went to remote bicycle lock. And that team was Sean Wang, Jake Karad, Vishwendu Rao, Shangju Li, and Kwan Sung. And the final award was for technical excellence, and that went to the collapsible dishwasher. I'd like to have seen that in action. That went to Austin Semmelroth, Kevin Griffin, Mike Reineman, Tim DeVisser, and Dylan Shackelford. Congratulations to everyone. I think I give the mic back.
All right, so we also have two other awards for current students, the Best Year Award and the Best PhD Award. So the Best Year Award goes to Kevin Arson. So Kevin, come here. So congratulations, Kevin. So Kevin was one of the key champion that all students love, and also I would cite he played a core role in the development of an online course and helped to refine the content in response to the feedback of the students enrolled in the new course. So on behalf of the department, I thank you for your work and give you this award. Cool. Thank you. And then we have, every year, we have the Best PhD Award, which is, so all the candidates who have finished their PhD in the past 2 years can be contenders. And this year it was awarded to Dan Wilson. And I cite the committee selected Dan for extensive and impactful work on model reduction for treatment of neurological disease and cardiac arrhythmias, enabling practical experimental implementations and potential therapy. So Dan is not here, like a lot of successful students. I know when it's they finish here, they have a job lined up or they do postdoc in prestigious place. So I'm going to give this PhD award to his advisor, Jeff Mollis. The check will go to Dan. Maybe you want to say a few words about it?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so if you're not paying attention, you might be like, oh my gosh, am I going to be this old when I finish graduate school? No, I was the advisor of the person who won. Dan was here for 5 years, but he was phenomenally productive while he was here. So he published, and I kind of lost count, but he published roughly 15 journal articles while he was here, which is a very large number. And it wasn't just the number, though, it was the quality of the publications. So as Frederick mentioned, he did work that was related to a treatment for Parkinson's disease. We think that this may lead ultimately to a better treatment for Parkinson's disease using something called deep brain stimulation. We're trying to patent it. We'll see what happens there. He also did some very nice fundamental work, generalizing a concept known as phase reduction to systems which have stable fixed points, whereas in the past it's always been applied to stable periodic orbits. So that was a very nice fundamental contribution. But then he used that to work on developing a better, possibly a better treatment for some cardiac arrhythmias. So it was a real great mix between sort of fundamental contributions and applications that might actually impact people's lives. So it was a great pleasure to advise him. I can't take too much credit for this, but as a little pep talk for the students that are out there, your work can actually make a difference and can actually change lives. And I think that's maybe a mark of a good engineer if you're aspiring to do that sort of thing. So go for it. Sorry, so he's now a postdoc at the University of Pittsburgh in mathematics with a very distinguished mathematical neuroscientist named Bart Ehrmantraut, and he plans to stay in academia, and in a couple of years, I think he will probably end up at a very good place. So it'll be fun to watch what he does.
So now is the time when I'd like to talk to you about our Mechanical Engineering Distinguished Alumnus Award. This award is presented each year to an exceptional individual who has demonstrated exceptional achievement in the fields of mechanical engineering. Announcements for nominations are broadly disseminated. We always use our social media presence. We contact all faculty, staff, students, and friends of the department. As time progresses, please do keep this award in mind and submit nominations. So this year's recipient, this is a list of past recipients. We started this award in 2014 in occasion of the 50th anniversary of the fund. So this year's recipient is an outstanding reflection of the values and qualities recognized by this award, and is an example for future mechanical engineers to see graduates to see what they can and are capable to achieve. This year's winner is Mr. John W. Lake, class of 1970. John attended Bakersfield High School. He then graduated from this department in 1970 with the Bachelor of Science, and then after that served in the U.S. Naval Reserve. After attending graduate school at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, he worked for Gulf General Atomic on an HDGR reactor project. Let me talk to you briefly about his entrepreneurial and corporate leadership career. He started working for a company called Rain for Rent in 1974. Worked his way through many aspects of the company's operations, such as engineering, manufacturing, leasing, and wholesale. He served as president of the company for 24 years, from 1990 till 2014, when he stepped down from his position as joint president and CEO. And recently, he came back out of retirement to assist the company with its sales efforts as executive vice president. So during his tenure as CEO and president of the company expanded into the industrial and environmental tank, pump, pipeline, and water filtration businesses. The company now has 70 sales, rental, and manufacturing locations and over 2,000 employees. You also oversaw a number of activities, including the expansion of the company to broad number of areas inside and outside the U.S., Rocky Mountains, East Coast, Midwest, Gulf Coast, Southeast, as well as I said, Canadian and European markets. He oversaw the creation of a company called Power Prime Pumps, which manufacture pumps for the agricultural and industrial markets, as well as of the development of their specialized rental division that specializes in the rental of filtration and large emergency pumping units. On top of his entrepreneurial leadership activities, John was also involved in the design and hold a number of patents on products that are used in the pipeline and tank rental businesses. And on top of all of his professional activity, he also has a notable set of activities and distinctions in public service. In 2004, John facilitated the hosting by Rent for Rain of President George W. Bush for his economic forum held in Bakersfield. This event brought international visibility and interest in the community there and in the company Rent for Rent. In 2000, so Rent for Rent is also instrumental and assistant in the pumping out of flooded areas in New Orleans during and after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, and for Hurricane Sandy when it hit in 2012 New York and New Jersey. John serves on the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo University Foundation Advisory Board. He's active in the Bakersfield Pest Club, the Idaho Irrigation Association, the Safari Club International, and serves as chairman and director of the California Agricultural Leadership Program. Let me conclude by saying that John and his wife Sheila are now residents of Montana. They have 2 sons and 3 grandchildren. So having said that, please join me in extending a warm round of applause and welcome to our 2016 Distinguished Alumnus Award of the Year for the UC Student Mechanical Engineering Department, Mr. John.
And I cut my thermodynamics class. I go surfing. Okay, thank you. It's good to live long enough to be able to come back to your university and give a speech. And, I had a lot of fun here, and a lot of interesting things I'd like to share with you. I'd like to thank you for inviting me to the Mechanical Engineering Convocation, and we're here to welcome, of course, the grad students and this year's senior students and celebrate awards. I really like awards. It's incredible achievements here in advancement in technology. Today my assignment, and I'm like a student, I'm going to try to follow my assignment, to tell you how my mechanical engineering experience prepared me for my career and give you a very short review of life after college. And lastly, some advice. My hope is that this short speech will stimulate you to think about 1 or 2 actions you can adopt that will enhance your success at work and home. You're going to bear with me a little bit. My education started here in 1967. I transferred from UCLA. The class size was 400, 200. I'm going to digress a little bit. I went to my first calculus class. I couldn't spell it because I was going to be an engineer. And a professor came out on a stage of 400 people and said, and he spoke, kind of broken. And he says, how many students already have calculus? And I was trying to figure out what it was. Everybody held up their hand but me. He said, good, we skipped to chapter 4. That was UCLA. And I go, whoa, this is competitive here. Little did I know what a life-changing decision it was to come here. I would meet my wife, Sheila, who was living with the dean here, where I had to go to pick her up. And I met many friends, lifelong friends, and I learned how to solve problems. The small class size and engaged professors and staff made learning enjoyable. But more than just enjoyable, it's personal relationships. Dr. Romer, Dr. Sennett, and Dr. Horvath, when we started the bioengineering classes, were people that could really teach you and transfer knowledge. We had everything: fluid dynamics, control systems, thermodynamics. We even had art and literature, those classes you love to take outside of your major. The senior project team I worked on with my 3 great friends was to design and construct a curb climbing wheelchair. We were encouraged to do that by the bioengineering department, which was just starting up. And we learned about compassion. It was shocking to go to a clinic where there's paraplegics and quadriplegics, young people, skateboards and motorcycles usually, who've been brain injured. And it really brought a lifelong desire to help people to me. And we designed this curb climbing wheelchair here. And it was before they passed ADA, the law, Americans with Disability Act, that allowed handicapped people access to restrooms and curbs and going up a curb, going up a stair. So we designed that, and we learned a lot about ourselves. But there's a lot more to UC Santa Barbara in those days. My campus experience, there was riots, there was fires, there was Vietnam, social upheaval. We invented hippies in my generation. Cool. I mean, really. There was attack upon churches. My parents were attacked by a mob in Isla Vista when my wife was participating in a beauty pageant. There was the death of a student, Kevin Moran, who died in my college roommate's hands in Isla Vista when he was accidentally shot by the National Guard when they took over the campus. The collapse of civil discourse and a lack of diversity of thought on campus was shocking to this Bakersfield redneck. And it caused me to think. The engineers mobilized during a riot and banded together to protect our engineering building from rioters and arsonists. This was a time of complete social upheaval in the United States. And we, on this campus, were the Senate with Kent State, if you do your history lessons. Through those trials, we learned about real life. We learned about intolerance on both sides of issues. These experiences in my engineering education helped me mature. Then, I was drafted. Many would say I won the lottery. So we all sat around, and we watched them pull these numbers out of the lottery thing, and they had your birthday on it, and they said, all right, in my case, you're number 124. So either serve your country or run. So I had been accepted at Stanford for my graduate degree, and I decided I better enlist in the Navy Reserve as a radar technician. So UCSB to the military, from flag burning to understanding the cost of freedom. Boot camp. It's where you learn to obey and do things you don't want to do, or you have option B, go to the brig. A very unpleasant place. Then I went through electronics training, which in radar school, which I excelled at. Why? Because of my great education here. Because somebody made me take an IE class, or 2 or 3 of them. I did well. I got out. I went to graduate school, went to work for Gulf General Atomic, and we had a high-temperature helium-cooled reactor program. We built the first helium-cooled reactor in Colorado in Platteville. And I entered an engineering management program. I volunteered, or someone volunteered me, and I moved to Colorado. There, this engineer met face-to-face with union labor, fitters, welders, construction managers, safety people, security people, operating engineers, and a 24/7 plant operation, meaning you got to do shift work. I discovered engineers need to listen to the instrument technicians, the welders, the fitters, the control room operators, and learn the safety procedures, especially at a facility like that. In those days, you could walk in like Homer Simpson with a coffee cup in the control room and talk to the guys. We have knowledge. These people have knowledge, these technicians, but they've got experience, which most of us don't have at that time. General Atomic was a highly proactive educational facility. You were required to take 2 lifelong learning classes in your discipline every semester on the General Atomic campus. And so I got my EIT and I passed my PE exam in mechanical engineering. Then Sheila and I decided to return to California. She taught English as a second language in a farm labor camp. And I returned to Rainfran, which you heard all that story. So we take pumps and pipe and filtration and heat machines, tanks, instrumentation, and combine it all like Legos. I'm like a giant Lego guy. And we make a temporary liquid handling system that provides a solution to a customer. From a clarifier in a refinery or a municipal sewer treatment plant, to a PCB water treatment system on an environmental cleanup site, from an irrigation of 10,000 acres of citrus on the Nile River in Egypt, to pumping out New Orleans and after the Hurricane Katrina, from oil fields to carrot fields. And if you're wondering, My name is John. I'm a dirty fracker. We're involved in producing food, providing you with materials by getting water where it belongs and away from where it doesn't belong. Problem solving, fact finding, team building, establishing design criteria to build these liquid handling solutions was what my job was. The full UC Santa Barbara experience prepared me for critical problem solving, both technically and socially. Enough about my experience. I want to give you something to use. Your mechanical engineering education is preparing you with knowledge and skills that can be leveraged to success by your own attitude and effort. You have access to the best engineering minds in America to build your knowledge and skills. In addition to knowledge and skills, each one of you has secret sauce. That's called talent. That special skill or aptitude is completely unique to you. Some of you can do music, art, athletics, have extreme compassion, empathy, or great faith. As you sit here today and look around, you can think of somebody that possesses knowledge and skills and talent that are possibly greater than your own. Likewise, you have fellow students whose lack of effort and positive attitude cripples their effectiveness. But your knowledge, skills, and talent can take you as far as your effort and attitude leads you. Soon you'll be equipped with this great education. You'll be entering a diverse workplace. You'll have supervisors, subordinates, vendors, customers, buyers, compliance officers, and heaven forbid you will meet a government regulator. These are also known as people. These people we have to work with, because now, when you leave here, you will have a thing called a job. And you're going to be in the people business. You're going to be a technology person in the people business. And being engineers, we often approach people problems with idealistic concept that if the problem is properly defined, a solution will be achieved. This is all engineers in this room too. Now that may work with things and processes. It doesn't work very well with people. Unfortunately, not every people problem needs fixing. And sometimes no one wants you to fix their feelings. Instead, they want you to listen. My first gift to you, of course, is we all know engineers are renowned for our people skills. At least I got one laughing on it. Here's my advice point for success. Learning how to listen and listen carefully to your customers, your boss, your subordinate, your teammate, until you clearly understand and mutually agree on the opportunity or problem that you're facing. Make no mistake, listening is really hard work. We live in a very distracted world. Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, WhatsApp. Just stop and listen with your eyes, your ears, and with your body language. Remember Grandma? You know, if you wanted to talk to Grandma, she kind of expected you to look at her, you know, and listen. Your full attention is hard. Listening to the other person should result in clear understanding. After you're quietly listening, you can clarify your thoughts and tell them what you heard. You can get verification and confirmation as to the facts. Listen until all parties on your team have agreement. Then start working on a solution as an aligned team. Listening, verifying, clarifying, and confirming builds understanding. Probably the #1 skill we all need to practice. Now I'm going to tell you a very short story and give you one takeaway. My dear friend Norm, vice president of our company, was a pithy, direct, wise leader and mentor of many. His advice was delivered in normisms, quotes and directions to help people grow, stretch a skill, or solve a problem. Norm didn't just spout out these cute quotes, he acted on them by example. If I needed someone to move to Chicago and fix a problem, he said, pick me, I'll go. If I had a tough customer problem, Norm would say, pick me, I'll go. If there was a flood in Katrina and there was no power, people living in motels with no power for weeks, and people shooting at our guys, putting pumps out, while they were busy robbing the houses that were flooded, right? National Guard's there maintaining peace while we're trying to pump. Norm said, pick me, I'll go down there. Your challenge is this: there'll be an opportunity on campus. There'll be one at work. There'll be one in the community. There'll be one in your church that's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable. It's difficult. And you don't want to do it. But I'm telling you right now, if you stand up and say, pick me, you're going to have the ride of a lifetime. I've done it a couple times. You'll miss Christmas. You'll be in Dubai on a project. No one else would go there. You'll be in Namibia helping engineers without borders. You'll be in a nuclear power plant during an outage. But your willingness to serve as a servant leader starts with, pick me. I'll go, I'll volunteer, try it. It'll generate a life-changing experience for you. Now, lucky for you, this is my last point. The power of appreciation, gratitude, recognition, building goodwill. First, a warning to you all, and I am number one in this one. 3 things you cannot turn back. A bullet. For those of you, anybody been in the military? 2 of us. Part of the 1%. You know what Mike Tyson said? The best fighting plan is eliminated the first time you get hit in the face. So all your training helps a lot until the first bullet comes toward you. You can't send a bullet, retrieve a bullet, a bad text, or a bad email, or an ill-spent, demeaning word to a colleague or friend. It destroys relationships. These things in the workplace don't work, so I encourage all of us, including myself, to wait before you consider hitting that send button or saying something that harms relationships. Now my interactive part comes, where's my assistants, my able assistants? I have to pass out something to you. It's free. It's free. Everything should be free. Right? I like free. So soon in your hand is going to be a stamped envelope and a blank thank you note. I'm going to challenge you, you don't have to do it, to write a note, a real life handwritten note. Not an email, not a text, not a twit, not a post, an actual note of gratitude, appreciation, and recognition to someone who helped you out, who helped you get through or into this university. An aunt, an uncle, a mom, a dad, a professor who inspired you and encouraged you. The power of positive feedback and your personal acknowledgement of appreciation is greater than gravity. Believe me, when it comes to relationship building, telling somebody you love and appreciate them is greater than gravity. They'll never forget you. Do it. Make it a habit. People will know that you love them. Right now, some of you have grannies who want to know that you love them. So write her a note on me. So we come to the end of my little speech. I want you to consider 3 things for your future. 1, listen. And then listen some more. 2, be like Norm. Hold up your hand. Pick me. Volunteer for that tough job. Believe me, it's a life changer. And thank you note. Do these things, I guarantee your career in life will be full of changes and experiences that will help you grow. Let's go create solutions that serve people, create good health, enhance safety for the public and prosperity in our great communities, nation, and the world. Thank you for the recognition and the opportunity to share. I really appreciate it, and I'm proud of all of you and of this university, especially the Mechanical Engineering Department, which is clearly the best engineering department in the whole college. Thank you. Take a picture, can you Photoshop it?
No.
You'll do it?
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you. One more.
You have 3 minutes. 3 minutes to present.
You're just telling me that.
I'm reminding you. You have 3 minutes. If you go over 3 minutes, I think you have 2 seconds. It's fine. After that, you have more than enough. And the goal is to present your research in a way that is understandable to a general audience. Okay, now everybody here is pretty much an engineer, so you can use maybe a bit more master of engineering term that you would do at the campus level, but not too much, all right? So that's this. So here, Jimmy, you want to do
Oh, no, I'll just speak. Yeah. Hopefully. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Is there someone timing me?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. You're just
So
gonna
use
start.
30 seconds.
I'm allowed to say hello without being timed, right?
So we will start when you start talking.
Okay.
And then I will give you the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 when it's at the end.
At the end? Okay, hopefully I'm done by then.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so this guy, the Tokay gecko, has been the subject of engineering interest for almost a decade now. And surprisingly, it isn't because these guys are fun to play with. They're actually pretty vicious. Anyone who doesn't like blood, I would discourage you from Googling Tokay gecko. The interest stems from this guy's ability to generate high adhesive forces, but detach with almost no effort, all over hundreds of thousands of repeat cycles. And the secret to the gecko's success is an intricate structural hierarchy. So what I mean by that is on top of scale-like structures are hundreds of thousands of microscale fibers, which themselves branch into nanoscopic spatule-like structures. With this, gecko can generate intimate contact with the surface and utilize short-range but universal van der Waals forces for adhesion. And so in designing an adhesive system of this kind, we maximize the load-bearing capability when we transmit load to the interface uniformly across all length scales. So that means having a uniform interfacial stress distribution at the fibril tip, but then also uniform load sharing among fibrils at the array level. And load concentrations at any length scale can negatively impact the detachment force because detachment occurs in a peel-like manner. And so the majority of focus in research has been here at the fibril level and on improving the fibril detachment force through size reduction and fibril tip geometry optimization. But this micro-scale focus has led to problems at the macro scale. And so the approach in biological systems is to add additional levels of hierarchy in order to improve load sharing and extend it to macroscopic dimensions. But hierarchical systems of this nature prove challenging to fabricate synthetically. And the result is that typical adhesives look like this. There's only a single array of fibrils on a monolithic backing length. The result is poor load sharing among these fibrils, becoming more severe as the size of the array is increased and therefore preventing scaling to meet the payload requirements of industrial systems. And consequently, the focus of research needs to shift towards these larger length scales if these deficiencies are to be tackled. And this is what we try to focus on, looking at geometry, structure, and material properties as a means to improving load sharing at larger length scales. And so, for example, our modeling efforts have shown that if fibrils are made more compliant towards the outer edge of an array, this is extremely beneficial to load sharing. Not only this, but we continue to take bio-inspiration from the gecko itself and have shown that arrays with elongated geometry are extremely beneficial for load sharing and improved detachment forces when compared to equiax geometries. That's akin to the lamellar features of the Tokay gecko here. And with continued work like this, we aim to make gecko-inspired adhesives a practical, everyday reality. However, to do this, we need to shift our focus and think big and not small. Thank you.
Present whenever you want.
Okay, human beings are social animals. We all work in groups, and we know that teamwork is very important. But there are only a few mathematical models trying to explain the concept of teamwork. This work is an attempt that explicitly relates the teamwork to the basic inner structures of the team. We start by stating the basic assumption that in a well-functioning team, the individual abilities should be proportional to their responsibilities. This is quite intuitive, right? and even supported by the Spider-Man. So now assume that you are a manager of a team. You don't know the true skill levels of the team members. But what you do know is that their performance increase with their abilities and decrease with the amount of workload you assign to them. So you assign workload to them and observe their performance and feedback. We prove that if you adjust the workload assignments according to the replica dynamics, which is well known in evolutionary games, then finally you will get the optimal assignment. Now let's consider a decentralized case in which there's no manager. What happens is that the team members will evaluate each other's skill levels, and those mutual evaluation defines in a structure which is called an appraisal network and determines how the workload is assigned. We assume that the workload assignment is based on the individual's eigenvector centrality in the appraisal network. And after completing the task, each individual observes, compares her own performance with the performance of a subset of the team members she observes. And thus, who observes whom defines another in a structure which is called the observation network. Now, this model looks totally different from the management model we just discussed. But surprisingly, we found that in this model, the workload assignment still satisfies replicator dynamics, and the team achieves the asymptotic optimal assignment.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, as late as 20 years ago, if you asked an oceanographer to make a map of the ocean surface currents, you give them a budget and a boat, they might make something like this. It would take a couple of weeks, it would be based on science and data, but it would basically be a cartoon. And in the ensuing decades, researchers, including myself, have set up a network of high-frequency radars, which are shown in the locations here by the yellow triangles. And these radars bounce radio waves off the sea surface, and they make maps of the ocean currents that look basically like this. Now, this has been a big advance for coastal oceanography. It also has wide application in things like oil spill response and search and rescue. It turns out if you get lost and you have a map like this, the Coast Guard has an easier time finding you. But if you look closely, you zoom in, you'll notice that it's quite smooth. And so we kind of expect, we know that the ocean is very turbulent. One question is, well, what should the ocean really look like? We had an idea from something like this. It's just slightly different visualization, but and this is from a high-resolution numerical model. But as you can see, there's a lot of small-scale structure. Turns out those are very important when you're trying to do trajectories and things like that. So my research is addressing this question, why don't the radar maps look like this? And I think it basically comes down to this. The radar algorithms are sort of designed for this scenario. Bouncing radio waves off an object that in the far field looks pretty much like a point source. Now, you don't need to be an oceanographer to know that the ocean is not really an airplane. It actually looks more like this, which is like a multitude of airplanes and kind of operating in semi-coherent patches. So if we can get the right signal model, we can make the ocean, the maps of the ocean currents from the radar look like this. Having observations like this would be a big win for coastal oceanography. We would have better spill response, better search and rescue. We'd have a better understanding of the dynamics of the coastal flows and how these affect coastal ecosystems and fisheries. And we would enable the essential task of science, which is to create new knowledge. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Maurice Filo, and today I would like to give you a brief expose of my current research on acoustic tomography for mobile sensors. To start with the theoretical part, imagine that there's a dynamic quantity changing in some region, and our ultimate goal is to develop a scheme to estimate this quantity everywhere. At first, one might think to spread a lot of sensors to take measurements at every single location. But that's obviously in practice not feasible, at least because of financial limitations. Our research focuses on incorporating the physical laws governing these quantities in our estimation procedure. This will certainly give us better estimation accuracy without actually requiring more sensors. Having said that, many challenges arise. Like how many sensors do we need? Where to place those sensors? And if those sensors are mobile, what is the best trajectory to be followed by these sensors to maximize the estimation accuracy? As an application, consider estimating temperature field inside an inaccessible region, such as hazardous forest fires, plumes, or even chambers or holes in which you don't want to hang sensors from the ceiling. Well, in these applications, obviously, you cannot go ahead and deploy your sensors inside that region. And for this reason, we use standoff sensors and deploy them on the boundaries or outside the boundaries. Now, mathematical manipulations on the available measurements will make this estimation possible. To explain this, take a look at the famous Sudoku game, where one has to figure out these unknown numbers according to some given rules. One way to do this is to sum up the rows and columns, and thus you gain information about several unknown at a time, rather than trying to figure out each cell by itself. Now in principle, this is very similar to acoustic tomography. We deploy transceivers on the boundaries, and these transceivers ping each other by sending ultrasonic sound waves and measure the time of flight of these signals. This really depends on the sum or the line integral of the temperature field along that path. Now, for the dynamical case, the Sudoku grid will be dynamically changing, and one has to figure out the unknowns at each instant of time. And for the temperature field, we deploy transceivers, for example, on drones, and we design optimal trajectories to be adopted by these drones in order to go ahead and to collect measurements so that we can maximize the estimation accuracy. Now, the take-home message from this 3-minute talk is that it wouldn't be wise to rely only on sensors for estimation if you actually know the physics underlying the problem, because that would be exactly like ignoring hints given to you to solve the Sudoku game. Thank you.
So I'm very glad to talk about my latest and the greatest discovery of my entire academic life. Me and a lot of my collaborators managed to discover unprecedented amount of information encoded in our DNA. Well, of course, most of us know that we are nothing but a bag of chemicals consisting of components such as adenosine, tyrosine, cytosine, and guanine, also known as A, T, C, and G. Very similar to zeros and ones, the way your personal computers store information, except you're storing biological information. Here you see a strand of DNA together with a complex protein machinery that produce protein. Well, so the way A, T, C, and G is organized in this piece of DNA tells a lot about your personality. Someone become Donald Trump, someone become Bernie Sanders just because they have different organization of this A, T, C, and G. Well, so this has been known before. What we discovered in our lab was that this protein machinery can diffuse around. So even in the empty space of DNA, we have a lot of information stored that tells a lot about how robust protein production in cell is. We use single-cell RNA sequencing and chromosomal conformation capture experiment to say, in a situation like the right panel, when we don't have enough space for this protein to move around, protein production tends to be noisier or bursty. Whereas in a situation where you have more space, gene expression is less noisy, which can be translated into a heterogeneous cell population. Well, why does it even matter? In the early development, after 5 to 6 years after fertilization, early embryo forms a special type of cells which is called embryonic stem cells. These cells are pluripotent, which means they can create different type of cells, such as skin cell, bone cell, heart cells, even blood cells. This process is called differentiation. Other example is mesenchymal stem cells, which grow in your bone marrow. These cells also can become fat cells, cartilage cells, or bone cells. Well, this process is known, but there is a long-lasting question in the field, was that why in a uniform cell population in which we just have only one cell type, embryonic stem cell, why some of them spontaneously, without any information, they just become, let's say, neurons, where the rest of them tend to replicate themselves and be embryonic stem cell forever. Well, we managed to unsolve this long-lasting problem, which is called asymmetric division, using latest experimental simulation techniques. We use high-performance computing to show that DNA density during development increases, which can change protein production pattern during development. We then use different experimental techniques such as qPCR to show the model predictions, and we confirm the correlation between DNA density and gene expression pattern, which suggests cell population heterogeneity is a driving force for development. Thank you.
Good, it's bonus time.
Oh, sorry.
With 1 million people in the United States and over 10 million worldwide suffering from Parkinson's disease, finding ways to alleviate its symptoms is an important research goal. For years, one of the most effective treatments for the tremors associated with Parkinson's has been deep brain stimulation, or DBS. Now, how DBS works is that an electrode is implanted into the brain, and high-frequency, high-amplitude signals are sent to the brain, which cause the tremors to abate. Now, how exactly this works isn't fully understood, but current research suggests that what's actually happening is that neurons in the subthalamic nucleus transition from firing in unison to a desynchronized state. And the problem is, because this process isn't totally understood, DBS is currently not well optimized, meaning it may be using much more energy than is strictly necessary. And the problem with this is that replacing the battery involves a highly invasive procedure. So my research focuses on actually desynchronizing these into clusters to both promote long-term benefits as well as reduce some of these associated costs. Now, our control scheme has two main components. First, we're going to define a positive semi-definite storage function for the system state. Now, this function can be arbitrary, but the most important thing is that it's equal to 0 at our target state and always increases as we move away from that state. Second, we're going to define a cost function. This includes an energy cost, which is proportional to the input squared, as well as a time delay penalty, a cost for the value of the storage function remaining high. Now, we combine these and actually try to maximize the efficiency of this system by finding where the storage function decreases the most for as little cost as possible. So in this way, we try to aim to get the most bang for our buck. Now, this has three main benefits. First, this is a very flexible method. You can basically apply any neuron model you want, and the underlying control scheme doesn't change. Second, unlike methods that involve pre-computing an input, because this is done in real time, it's more robust to heterogeneities that might be present in the model, but not the original simulation. And lastly, it's very easy to adapt to the specific control objectives of interest. This could be the number of neurons in each cluster, or the number of clusters, or broader control objectives such as the response time or the maximum input amplitude. But none of this would matter if it doesn't work. And the good news is that it seems to work quite well. Not only does this method rapidly achieve clustering, but it does so at a fraction of the cost of similar control methods, such as bang-bang or constant amplitude control. So what we have here is a robust framework to address a lot of the complexities that arise when you end up with a neuron population, heterogeneities and stochasticities, that we can eventually incorporate into this model to continue improving its effectiveness and really continue finding exciting results.
So I'm Jeff Peters, and I work with unmanned vehicles. So teams of unmanned vehicles are becoming increasingly common in modern applications. They get used for things like warehouse logistics, environmental monitoring, and various military and civilian surveillance applications. Now, a lot of people think that when you use these systems, you're able to just press a button and have everything work and you never have to touch it again. But the reality of it is that most of these systems have a human involved somewhere in the system. And whenever you have a human involved, humans are unpredictable, and things can happen, like they can get bored, they can get overworked, they can get fatigued. And so sometimes these can cause bottlenecks in the system. Now, there's a variety of different ways that people can interact with the system. My research deals with one particular form of interaction called supervisory control, where a person gives periodic feedback to the system, so it operates relatively on its own. Now, more specifically, I deal with systems where with a particular application where we send out a team of unmanned aerial vehicles to take pictures of some unknown region those get sent back to a human who analyzes the imagery to look for things of interest. So the question becomes, it's really, how do we design an effective overall system rather than each piece individually? And it really becomes a systems engineering problem, right? So we want to look at not only the individual pieces, but also how they fit together as a whole. And to do that, we rely on collaboration between people of different areas of expertise. So what we do is we look at the entire system and we look at each piece, always sort of keeping in mind what the overall goal is. So from the automation side, we have a set of primitive behaviors, like, for example, visiting targets with visibility and dwell time constraints, or maybe optimal space partitioning, or we call this area reconnaissance. On the human side, I work with my psychology partners to develop mathematical models for how people make decisions and analyze these types of imagery. We use things like neurophysiological sensing, so that'd be like eye tracking machines, to figure out how they accumulate sensory evidence, and we can give them suggestions as to when they should keep looking at an image or when they should move on to the next one to maximize performance. Now, we don't only want to do this in theory, we also want to put everything together and actually try it out. So with our partners up in the Bay Area, these are our military partners, we have a high fidelity simulator that we use where we actually implement some of these control schemes as well as some of the physiological sensing. And we're currently working on bringing in actual pilots who have experience with these types of unmanned systems to try out this simulator, give us feedback so that we can further mature the technology. Thank you.
That's it? Are there any more speakers? No. Speakers, okay, let me say 3 more words, take your time, and then we'll call everybody ready to give that little celebration. So my final remarks, and then we can take a break. There's a reception waiting for us outside, I hope. First of all, as I have shown, as I try to impress upon you, we really do try to offer best possible education and research on campus. I found this quote just a few hours ago. We all need people who give us feedback. That's how we improve. So please, you students, please do give me and all of us, faculty and staff, feedback on how we do so that we can improve. That's a recent talk by Judith, who was actually talking about teachers, as a matter of fact. I do want to thank everybody who has been involved in organizing this event, especially our skillful, efficient, and supportive staff, including Laura Reynolds and Mariah Clegg. Mariah is not here, but Laura is there in the back. Maybe we can have a quick round of applause for and even though I forgot to put Caitlin and Shawnee's names on the board, they are also, I'm also very thankful for them as well. I also want to thank Professor Jabot, Professor Kimberly Turner for having helped, and the entire viewing panel, and all the other students who are here with us today for attending and participating. And finally, I will say, go Gauchos! The refreshment is outside, and then we'll